The military backgrounds of psychologists in organizational development. Written and narrated by John Igor Galinato. Burroughs Frederick Skinner, more commonly known as B.F. Skinner, was born on March 20, 1904, in Pennsylvania, USA. He would later become an American psychologist best known for his creation of the theory of positive reinforcement, where he considered free will to be an illusion, and saw human actions as dependent on consequences of previous actions, the principle of reinforcement. What people may not know about Skinner is that he was a failed writer. Before he studied psychology in Harvard, he had a Bachelor of Arts in English Literature in 1926. But he had little world experience and no strong personal perspective from which to write. Perhaps the field of writing did not reinforce him as much as the field of psychology. During World War II, Skinner worked for the US Navy by initiating Project Pigeon, wherein pigeons would be placed inside missiles to act as a guidance system towards German ships. In Project Pigeon, this system divided the nose cone of a missile into 3 compartments, with a pigeon placed in each. Lenses projected an image of distant objects onto a screen in front of each bird. Thus, when the missile was launched from an aircraft within sight of an enemy ship, an image of the ship would appear on the screen. The screen was hinged, such that pecks at the image of the ship would guide the missile towards the ship. Despite an effective demonstration, the project was abandoned, and eventually more conventional solutions such as those based on radar became available. Skinner complained that our problem was no one would take us seriously. The next theorist is Wilfred Bion. He is an English psychoanalyst born on September 8, 1897 in India. He is best known for his theory of the group unconscious. Bion believes that every group is actually composed of 2 groups. Number 1, the work group, which is concerned with group accomplishment and rational actions, and number 2, the basic assumption group, one which is concerned with activity that stems from the unconscious, is irrational, and could interfere with the task that the group is trying to accomplish. What people may not know about Bion is that he served as a tank commander in World War I in 1916. He was awarded the Distinguished Service Order for gallantry. When his tank was hit, Bion fired a Lewis gun with great effect from the top of his tank. After the war, Bion studied history in the Queen's College in Oxford. Then he studied medicine in the College of London, and then psychoanalysis. He was recommissioned in the Army in 1940 as part of the Royal Army Medical Corps. He worked in the military hospital, where he treated soldiers with shell shock or post-traumatic stress. Abraham Maslow was born on April 1, 1908 on Brooklyn, New York, to Jewish parents. He would go on to become an American psychologist best known for creating Maslow's hierarchy of needs, a theory of psychological health predicated on fulfilling innate human needs in priority, culminating in self-actualization. In his theory, Maslow urged people to acknowledge their basic needs before addressing higher needs, and ultimately self-actualization. What people may not know about Maslow was that, while studying psychology at the City College of New York, he took law classes at night, in addition to his undergraduate course load. He hated law, and almost immediately dropped out. In 1928, Maslow married his first cousin Bertha, who was still in high school at the time. Here is a photo of Maslow with his wife in their older years. After finishing City College, Maslow pursued and finished his postgraduate studies in psychology in the University of Wisconsin. Maslow was not able to enlist as a soldier in World War II because he was already a 33-year-old father and had two children when the United States entered the war. He was thus ineligible for the military. Maslow's research has also been used by the US military. For example, the US Coast Guard, in order to retain talent, implemented in 2019 deferment options for temporary duty orders for up to 1 year postpartum. In 1970, when he was 60 years old, Maslow died of a heart attack while jogging in Menlo Park, California. Frederick Hertzberg was born on April 18, 1923, on Lynn, Massachusetts, to Jewish parents. He would go on to become an American psychologist, best known for creating the motivation hygiene theory, also known as the two-factor theory. According to the said theory, hygiene factors like clean toilets in the workplace will not necessarily motivate employees, but if they are not there, they can lower motivation. On the other hand, motivational factors like potential for promotion and job recognition can increase motivation. What people may not know about Hertzberg is that he enrolled in the City College of New York City in 1939, the same college Abraham Maslow studied in. He did not finish his studies as he enlisted in the army. He finally finished his studies and graduated from City College of New York in 1946. Hertzberg's research is used by the US military to motivate soldiers. As an example is this chapter of an Army field manual. And here is a South Korean military study using Hertzberg's theory. In 2000, at 76 years old, Hertzberg died at the University Hospital in the University of Utah, Salt Lake City. Victor Vroom was born on August 9, 1932 in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. His primary research was on the expectancy theory of motivation, which attempts to explain why individuals choose to follow certain courses of action and prefer certain goals or outcomes over others in organizations, particularly in decision making and leadership. In essence, the motivation of the behavior selection, according to Vroom, is determined by the desirability of the outcome. His research has been modified by critics like Edward Lawler, who never disagreed with his research but just added some other concepts. Although Vroom has no published records of military experience, his research has been extensively used by the US military to motivate soldiers. Richard Hackman was a Harvard University professor of social and organizational psychology, born in 1940 in Illinois, and died in Boston, Massachusetts in 2013. Greg Oldham is an American economist at the University of Illinois. Both researchers, Hackman and Oldham, grew up in the same town of Illinois. Their research, the job characteristics theory, proposed that jobs should be enriched in ways that boosted motivation, instead of just simplified to a string of repetitive tasks. For them, the core job characteristics of a satisfying job are as follows: skill variety. The job must employ diverse skills. Number 2, task identity. The task must produce identifiable work. Number 3, task significance. The job must have an impact on the lives of others. 4, autonomy or level of independence. And 5, feedback or knowledge of the results. Although Hackman and Oldham have no published records of military experience, the research job characteristics theory have been used in the U.S. Air Force training. Hackman and Oldham's job characteristics theory has also been used by the Swedish military to improve their soldiers' job satisfaction. Kurt Lewin is a Jewish German-American born in Prussia, modern-day Poland, on September 9, 1890. He is best known for his change model and field theory. According to Lewin, a person's behavior at any given moment can be predicted if we can determine the intensity and strength of forces impinging on the person from the environment. He would be one of the founders of organizational development. What people may not know about Lewin was that before he shifted to psychology in 1911, he was a medical student in the University of Berlin in April 1910. Lewin also served in the German army in World War I. A war wound caused him to return to the University of Berlin, where he finished his PhD. When Hitler came to power in 1933, Lewin immigrated to the US. Lewin's theories were used by Eric Trist in his studies in soldiers in World War II at the London Tavistock Clinic. Lewin's change theory is also used by the US military. Lewin's change theory consisted of 3 stages: unfreeze, change, and freeze. This picture was derived from a US military news journal. Chris Argyris was born in 1923 to Greek immigrants in New Jersey, USA. He would later on become a professor of psychology in Harvard and a co-founder of organizational development. Argyris is best known for his theory on double-loop learning or ladder of inference, a metaphorical model of cognition and action. Argyris believed that managers who treat people positively and as responsible adults will achieve productivity. Mature workers want additional responsibilities, variety of tasks, and the ability to participate in decisions. He also came to the conclusion that problems with employees are the result of mature personalities managed by outdated practices. What people may not know about Argyris is that he served in the US Army Signal Corps during World War II. The picture in this frame is not Argyris but of a radio operator during World War II. The Signal Corps is responsible for communications and information systems for the command and control of combined armed forces. There is some possibility that his job in the army may have influenced his approach in his research. Francis Likert was born on August 5, 1903 in Wyoming, US. He would later on become an American social psychologist, best known for the Likert scale, an approach to creating a psychometrically sound scale based on responses to multiple questions or items. Likert also created a theory of participative management, which in his view is the best management system because it engages employees in the workplace and ultimately allows them to enjoy their job more. What people may not know about Likert is that he first studied civil engineering at the University of Michigan before shifting to economics and sociology in the same university after witnessing a strike. He then had his PhD in psychology at Columbia University. Likert was a soldier. During World War II, Likert served in the Office of War Information as head of the U.S. Strategic Bombing Survey Morale Division in 1944. It was an office tasked with delivering clear wartime-related information to the public. In a way, Likert worked as a researcher for the army, doing research like assessing the effects of bombing on Germany and Japan. Paul R. Lawrence is an American sociologist of the Harvard Business School, born 1922, died 2011. He had joined the Navy in World War II, 1942. The Navy was actually the one who sent him to study at Harvard Business School to train him for the Quartermaster Corps, which are responsible for the maintenance, correction, and preparation of nautical charts and navigation publications. J. Lorsch, also a proponent of the contingency theory, is an organizational theorist of the Harvard Business School, born 1932. He studied business administration at Harvard University. He also served as a lieutenant in the U.S. Army Finance Corps from 1956 to 1959. Lawrence and Lorsch's contingency theory is an organizational theory that claims that there is no best way to organize a corporation, to lead a company, or to make decisions. Instead, the optional course of action is contingent or dependent upon the internal and external situation. Lawrence and Lorsch's contingency theory has been used by the U.S. military to justify increasing differentiation in organizational structure in order to meet the complexity of the environment. Harry Levinson is an American psychologist born on January 16, 1922 in New York. He analyzed the organization as a family. He believed that an organization can be psychoanalyzed and that an organization operates like a family, with the chief executive officer as the father. Levinson linked the failure of managers to effectively contain the anxieties of workers to employee depression and low productivity. If you notice that his eyes in this picture look weird, that's because he's blind. He lost his eyesight to macular degeneration, a cause of irreversible blindness due to destruction of the center portion of the retina. After Levinson had finished college, he had served in the military from 1943 to 1946. Levinson advocated work rotations to give employees change and prevent burnout, citing his military background as an example. According to Levinson, change also enables people to look forward to a time when they can get out of a binding job. Long recognizing this need, the military limits the number of combat missions that Air Force personnel fly, and the duration of tours that ground personnel must serve. Levinson also advocated that managers should keep in contact with their workers, much like generals to soldiers. He said, "In times of unmitigated strain, it is particularly important for managers to keep up personal interaction with their subordinates. To borrow from the military again, generals valued by their troops, such as George Patton and James Gavin in World War II, have made it a practice to be involved with their frontline soldiers." Levinson's theory is also used by the U.S. military. What is obvious from all these theories is that majority of them have military backgrounds, and that their researches may have been commissioned by the military itself to improve the morale of men and to improve their organizational structure. It is thus reasonable to speculate that the military may have benefited in one form or another from the researches of the aforesaid organizational development theorists.